Hello and welcome back. I'm the non-qualified evangelist. This is 183. We're reading the Book of Ecclesiastes. We are on to the second of the three Solomon writings. Song of Solomon was first. This is Ecclesiastes. Next will be Proverbs. Koheles is the name that is given to a person who can convene an assembly and then teaches or preaches to that assembly. And the English pronunciation of the Greek translation of this Hebrew word is Ecclesiastes, for which this book is named. So at an assembly, people gather, a person gives the message. The question would be, what is the message here? Written by the wisest man in the world? What does he have to say? Let's pray. Father, thank you for this book. Thank you for the opportunity to take several moments and read through and listen and ponder and question and wonder. As is always the case, I am asking that you be with us during this reading and during the study, and most importantly, perhaps when we're finished and we go on and do our days and we're just thinking about what we have heard. Perhaps there you could reflect on these thoughts and bring to us some understanding that would make all of this absolutely worthwhile. That's my prayer. Amen. Ecclesiastes 1. The words of Koheles, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Futility of futilities, said Koheles. Futility of futilities. All is futile. What profit does a man have for all his labor, which he toils beneath the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth endures forever. And the sun rises and the sun sets, then to its place it rushes. There it rises again. It goes toward the south and veers toward the north. The wind goes round and on its rounds the wind returns. All the rivers flow into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers flow, there they flow once more. All words are wearying. One becomes speechless. The eye is never sated with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. Whatever has been is what will be, and whatever has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new beneath the sun. Sometimes there is something of which one says, "Look, this is new." It has already existed in the ages before us. As there is no recollection of the former ones, so too of the latter ones that are yet to be. There will be no recollection among those of a still later time. I, Koheles, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I applied my mind to seek and probe by wisdom all that happens beneath the sun. It is a sorry task that God has given to the sons of man with which to be concerned. I have seen all the deeds done beneath the sun, and behold, all is futile and a vexation of the spirit. A twisted thing cannot be made straight, and what is not there cannot be numbered. I said to myself, here I have acquired great wisdom, more than any of my predecessors over Jerusalem. And my mind has had much experience with wisdom and knowledge. I applied my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this too is a vexation of the spirit. For with much wisdom comes much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases pain. Ecclesiastes 2. I said to myself, come, I will experiment with joy and enjoy pleasure. That too turned out to be futile. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of joy, what does it accomplish? I ventured to stimulate my body with wine, while my heart is involved with wisdom, and to grasp folly until I can discern which is best for mankind to do under the heavens during the brief span of their lives. I acted in grand style. I built myself houses. I planted vineyards. I made for myself gardens and orchards and planted in them every kind of fruit tree. I constructed pools from which to irrigate a grove of young trees. I bought slaves, male and female, and I acquired stewards. I also owned more possessions, both cattle and sheep, than all of my predecessors in Jerusalem. I amassed even silver and gold for myself, and the treasure of kings and the provinces. I provided myself with various musical instruments, and with every human luxury, chests and chests of them. Thus I grew and surpassed any of my predecessors in Jerusalem. Still, my wisdom stayed with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not deny them. I did not deprive myself of any kind of joy. Indeed, my heart drew joy from all my activities, and this was my reward for all my endeavors. Then I looked at all the things that I had done and the energy that I had expended in doing them. It was clear that it was all futile and a vexation of the spirit, and there is no real profit under the sun. Then I turned my attention to appraising wisdom with madness and folly. For what can a man who comes after the king do? It has already been done. And I perceived that wisdom excels over folly as light excels over darkness. A wise man has his eyes in his head, whereas a fool walks in darkness. But I also realized, even I, that the same fate awaits them all. So I said to myself, the fate of the fool will befall me also. To what advantage then have I become wise? But I concluded that this too was futility, for there is no comparison between the remembrance of the wise man and of the fool at all. For as the succeeding days roll by, is all forgotten? How can the wise man die like the fool? So I hated life, for I was depressed by all that goes on under the sun, because everything is futile and a vexation of the spirit. Thus I hated all my achievements, laboring under the sun, for I must leave it to the man who succeeds me. And who knows whether he will be wise or foolish? And he will have control over all my possessions, for which I toiled and have shown myself wise beneath the sun. This too is futility. So I turned my heart to despair of all that I had achieved by laboring under the sun. For there is a man who labored with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, yet he must give over his portion to one who has not toiled for it. This too is futility and a great evil. For what has a man of all his toil and his stress in which he labors beneath the sun? For all his days are painful, and his business is a vexation. Even at night his mind has no rest. This too is futility. Is it not good for man that he eats and drinks and shows his soul satisfaction in his labor? And even that, I perceived, it is from the hand of God. For who should eat and who should make haste except me? To the man who pleases him, he has given wisdom, knowledge, and joy. But to the sinner, he has given the urge to gather and amass, that he may give it over to the one who is pleasing to God. That too is futility and a vexation of the spirit. Ecclesiastes 3. Everything has its season, and there is a time for everything under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot the planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to wreck and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to wail and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to shun embraces. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to discard. A time to rend and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What gain then has the worker by his toil? I have observed the task which God has given the sons of man to be concerned with. He made everything beautiful in its time. He has also put an enigma into their minds so that man cannot comprehend what God has done from beginning to end. Thus, I perceived that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good in his life. Indeed, every man who eats and drinks and finds satisfaction in all his labor, this is a gift of God. I realize that whatever God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing can be subtracted from it. And God has acted so that man should be in awe of him. What has been already exists, and what is still to be has already been. And God always seeks the pursued. Furthermore, I have observed beneath the sun, in the place of justice, there is wickedness, and in the place of righteousness, there is wickedness. I mused, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for everything, and for every deed there. Then I said to myself concerning men, God has chosen them, but only to see that they themselves are like beasts. For the fate of men and the fate of the beast, they have one and the same fate. As one dies, so dies the other. And they all have the same spirit. Man has no superiority over beast, for all is futile. All go to the same place. All originate from dust, and all return to dust. Who perceives that the spirit of man is the one that ascends on high, while the spirit of the beast is the one that descends down into the earth? I therefore observed that there is nothing better for man than to be happy in what he is doing, for that is his lot. For who can enable him to see what will be after him? Ecclesiastes 4. I returned and contemplated all the acts of oppression that are committed beneath the sun. Behold, tears of the oppressed, with none to comfort them, and their oppressors have the power, with none to comfort them. So I consider more fortunate the dead who have already died than the living who are still alive. But better than either of them is he who has not yet been, and has never witnessed the evil that is committed beneath the sun. And I saw that all labor and all skillful enterprise spring from a man's rivalry with his neighbor. This too is futility and a vexation of the spirit. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. Better is one handful of pleasantness than two fistfuls of labor and vexation of the spirit. Then I returned and contemplated another futility beneath the sun. There is a lone and solitary man who has neither son nor brother. Yet there is no end to all his toil, nor is his eye ever sated with riches. Nor does he ask himself, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of goodness? This too is futility. Indeed, it is a sorry task. Two are better than one, for they get a greater return for their labor. For should they fall, one can lift the other. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, and there's no one to lift him. Also, if two sleep together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Where one can be overpowered, two can resist attack. A three-ply cord is not easily severed. Better is a poor but wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knows how to take care of himself. Because from the prison he emerged to reign, while even in his reign he was born poor. I saw all the living that wonder beneath the sun throng to the succeeding youth who steps into his place. There is no end to the entire nation, to all that was before them. The ones that come later will not rejoice in him as well. For this too is futility and a vexation of the spirit. Guard your foot when you go to the house of God. Better to draw near and hearken than to offer the sacrifices of fools, for they do not consider that they do evil. Ecclesiastes 5. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. So let your words be few. For a dream comes from much concern, and foolish talk from many words. When you make a vow to God, do not delay paying it, for he has no liking for fools. What you vow, pay. Better that you not vow at all, than that you vow and not pay. Let not your mouth bring guilt on your flesh, and do not tell the messenger that it was an error. Why should God be angered by your speech and destroy the work of your hands? Despite of all dreams, futility, and idle chatter, rather, fear God. If you see oppression of the poor, and the suppression of justice, and right in the state, do not be astonished at the fact, for there is one higher than high who watches, and there are high ones above them. The advantage of land is supreme. Even a king is indebted to the soil. A lover of money will never be satisfied with money. A lover of abundance has no wheat. This too is futility. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. What advantage then has the owner except what his eyes see? Sweet is the sleep of the laborer, whether he eats little or much. The satiety of the rich does not let him sleep. There is a sickening evil which I have seen under the sun. Riches hoarded by their owner to his misfortune, and he loses those riches in some bad venture. If he begets a son, he has nothing in his hand. As he emerged from his mother's womb, naked will he return, as he had come. He can salvage nothing from his labor to take with him. This too is a sickening evil. Exactly as he came, he must depart. And what did he gain by toiling for the wind? Indeed, all his life he eats in darkness. He's greatly grieved and has illness and anger. So what I have seen to be good is that it is suitable to eat and drink and enjoy pleasure with all one's labor, that he toils beneath the sun during the brief span of his life that God has given him, for that is his lot. Furthermore, every man to whom God has given riches and possessions and has given him the power to enjoy them, possess his share and be happy in his work. This is the gift of God. For he shall remember that the days of his life are not many, while God provides him with the joy of his heart. Ecclesiastes 6. There is an evil I have observed beneath the sun, and it is prevalent among mankind. A man to whom God has given riches, wealth, and honor, and he lacks nothing that the heart could desire. Yet, God did not give him the power to enjoy it. Instead, a stranger will enjoy it. This is futility and an evil disease. If a man begets 100 children and lives many years, great being the days of his life, and his soul is not content with the good, and he is even deprived of burial, I say, the stillborn is better off than he, though its coming is futile, and it departs in darkness, though its very name is enveloped in darkness, though it never saw the sun nor knew it, it has more satisfaction than he. Even if he should live 1,000 years twice over, but find no contentment, do not all go to the same place? A man's toil is for his mouth, yet his wants are never satisfied. What advantage, then, has the wise man over the fool? What less has the pauper who knows how to conduct himself among the living? Better is what the eyes see than what is imagined. That too is futility and a vexation of the spirit. What has been was already named, and it is known that he is but a man. He cannot contend with one who is mightier than he. There are many things that increase futility. How does it benefit man? Who can possibly know what is good for man in life during the short span of his futile existence, which he should consider like a shadow? Who can tell a man what will be after him beneath the sun? Okay then. So we have heard this message before, don't waste your time. But what is Solomon writing here? He speaks of time, what will be, has been, and that there is a time for things. It's as if there was an appointment for the events that are going to take place. All you have to do is wait, and then you can adjust your thoughts according to the moment you're in. So you'll say, oh, this is the moment for sadness or whatever. But the man with everything and the guy that has absolutely nothing because he doesn't have a brain, these guys in Solomon's estimation effectively are the same because they both die. So it comes back to this question of time. The efforts of an ambitious man to get all the money and to do all the things, Solomon calls that evil. He acknowledges toil is not awesome, yet we all are motivated to endure toil so that we can presumably improve our life. At that exact moment, we undervalue enjoyment because we say, it's frivolous. We can't have enjoyment right now. We need to work and do things we don't want to do. It's crazy. Simply stated, Solomon is actually saying, no. You should just occupy your mind with the things that will bring to you peace and harmony and happiness, eating and drinking, being with the woman of your dreams. These are not bad things. The ambition for the house and the stuff, maybe not so great. But we read those fortune cookie messages all the time. Do not pursue money, pursue something that you love. Once again, here in the United States, it is possible that might not necessarily be the message that we're sharing. So what do? How do we make sense of this wisdom here? How do we apply it to our lives? Ultimately, you have to assume that Solomon is at least attempting to assemble a noble society. And this is exactly what Moses was doing with the Ten Commandments. This is the way to nobility. So what does the infrastructure of a noble society look like? if these guys here are not pursuing personal ambition, but instead they're focusing solely on the things that bring them peace and happiness. But we already know that nobody listened to Moses, nobody listened to these guys. We already know that. They have been blown off the face of the earth. This is advice that we're really not going to be able to put into practice because of something that is in our brain that prevents us from just relaxing and enjoying, unless relaxing and enjoying is at a beach with a pina colada or something, luxurious and wonderful. Okay, there is still half a book left. Let's see what he has to say. I think it's at least provocative. Thank you for listening. The NQE is out.